JD Sports is one of the few success stories of Britain's high street bloodbath, which has seen the bankruptcy of a number of major brands and others shuttering stores as they struggle to restructure under increasing pressures from online sellers. JD Sports, who traced their roots back to their first store in Bury, Greater Manchester, in 1981, have ridden the athleisure boom to become one of the most successful retailers in the UK. Peter Cowgill has successfully run the company, which, since listing on the stock market, has risen over 7,000%, turning it into one of the largest 100 companies in the United Kingdom. Let's take a look at how they did it. JD Sports was founded by John Wardle and David Macon in Bury, Greater Manchester, and named it after themselves, John David Sports. Backed by family and friends, they opened their first shop. Peter Cowgill, who served as executive chairman of the company since 2004, joined JD Sports in the early days as the finance director. Cowgill, who was born in Manchester in 1953, is a chartered accountant by trade and became finance director after JD became a client of his accounting business. He initially juggled the role at JD Sports alongside running his own business, which he had built up in the UK. Cowgill got a feeling for youth culture in the early days of JD Sports from the co-founders, who spotted a gap in the market for branded clothing from the likes of Nike, Adidas and Puma. The company, even in those days, was not a conventional sports shop, selling football shirts but not studs, and focusing on fashionable brands such as Fred Perry, Lacoste and Sergio Tacchini. Soon, sports equipment was entirely eradicated from the stores as fashion took over. Cowgill soon developed an eye for what young customers wanted and how to service this demand as the company expanded into the lucrative southern markets around London. Despite being an accountant by trade, a colleague described Cowgill as the most unaccountant-like accountant he'd ever met, capable of going through the receipts one minute and then pulling off a big takeover the next. JD Sports grew organically in the early days and floated on the London Stock Exchange in 1966 with 61 shops. Cowgill masterminded the float as finance director. However, he tried to leave the company in 1998 but was stopped by another director. He left properly in 2001 after a disagreement and went back to his accounting practice, creating a new advisory arm to help clients grow their businesses. He was asked to return to JD 2 years later to sort out a problem. Cowgill said that he would only return to the business if he was in charge, and he returned as the new boss. But he found out that he only had 4 weeks to turn around the business and explained to 7 banks how he would do it. Cowgill found himself in charge of around 6,000 employees, but this did not faze him, despite only managing around 300 at his accounting chain. Cowgill focused on the future leaders of the business who would drive staff lower down the chain to succeed. In the early 2000s, JD Sports was playing catch-up with rivals JJB Sports and later Sports Direct, who had a firm hold on sports retail in the UK. Through expansion, JD began to bridge this gap through acquisitions. In 2005, they bought All Sports, a rival retailer who were going into administration. They paid £13 million, which at the time was a lot of money for the 180 stores which they had to integrate into their business. However, they had removed a competitor and increased their market share in doing so. Cowgill focused mainly on making the acquisition profitable, but also took advantage of growth opportunities. At one point, he ruthlessly closed 105 JD Sports stores, which were too close together and reducing growth from their existing stores. 2005 was also pivotal as co-founders John Wardle and David Macon sold their remaining shares in the business to the Pentland Group, a privately owned company who own famous brands such as Speedo, Berghaus and LSA. Pentland are now the largest shareholders in the business with a 55% stake. Cowgill initially spoke to the Pentland boss Stephen Rubin about how badly the business was doing, and he bought in, backing Cowgill to turn the company around. In recent years, many sports shops have suffered, falling between JJB, a traditional sports retailer, and JD Sports, focused more on fashion business. a number of rivals have struggled to survive and became sandwiched between the two competitors in the marketplace. In 2012, JD again benefited from the bankruptcy of major rival JJB and also acquired 290 shops from outdoor retailer Blacks and Millets from liquidation for just £20 million. In 2014, the CEO of JD Sports left, with Cowgill taking on the role of CEO and executive chairman. Investors were not keen on this from a corporate governance standpoint, but as the returns continued to roll in, they realised how lucrative the business had become. JD soon expanded into France, purchasing Showsport for €8 million. They leveraged the existing business's 75 stores located around the country to open more JD Sports branded shops on the continent and utilise their infrastructure to supply these shops and save money. Spain was the next target with the purchase of Sprinter, who owned 60 shops. Again, Cowgill looked to use existing infrastructure to expand rather than purely to restructure and close down poor performing stores. The big issue that JD Sports has faced has been expansion into America, as they couldn't open due to competition from Foot Locker, Dick's and Finish Line. The only way to enter the lucrative US market was by a major player, and that's exactly what Cowgill did. He approached the management of Finish Line over an acquisition and purchased them for $558 million, the biggest deal in the company's history. Many British companies have failed when expanding into America, but Cowgill hopes to buck this trend by purchasing established chains who are already profitable. JD Sports plans to buy these companies and add value by redesigning stores and improving the products available to consumers to draw in a wider crowd. A deal for Shoe Palace in 2020 for $325 million has strengthened JD's foothold in the United States and showed that they have been successful thus far. Despite the crumbling retail sector in the UK, which has seen many high streets decimated, Cowgill sees bricks and mortar bringing the business to life, which cannot be achieved online. JD Sports also sells online, with collection available in store and the ability to order to the shop online. Athleisure is a major driver of growth, the process of sportswear being worn when not playing sport. The senior team at the company sees this not as a trend, but as a new culture alongside budget gyms. The rise of limited edition apparel such as shoes, which JD Sports stock, have also brought customers in, as these items can be resold on the second-hand market for large markups. Cowgill admits that his early success was driven by insecurity, with opportunities to make money that he didn't have before. He became addicted to the process, which has driven him to success. He feels that success controls people rather than people controlling it, and he initially saw success as a chance to retire by 40 in his accounting days. However, when he reached the age of 40, he aimed to fulfill his ambitions. These were not focused entirely on wealth, but on wanting a better life than his childhood, where he witnessed his parents fighting over a Kit Kat. Mike Ashley, the chain of rival Sports Direct, has pledged to crush JD Sports, but so far has failed to emulate the business model of creating stores that are smart destinations for quality brands such as Nike and Adidas, versus the pilot high, sell it cheap model of Ashley. The rise of athleisure has outpaced the wider apparel market in recent years, and JD Sports has the contracts in place with major brands to sell their latest offerings, something that many rivals covet. These key suppliers want their products sold in an appealing environment to consumers, and regularly check in with the company during earnings calls. Sports Direct are cottoning onto this through upmarket brand flannels, but still have a long way to go to emulate their bigger rivals. Cowgill is also looking into data to find ways to improve the business. He spent 3 years analysing slow-moving stock and calculated the profit margins the company made and how to move it quicker so they could stock more lucrative items. The managing team at JD Sports is also small, with Cowgill and Finance Director Brian Small acting as the only executive directors, meaning that decision-making is often quick and straightforward. This has been an issue to some investors, with so few individuals wielding such power, but Cowgill has said the concentration of power has never been an issue. In 2021, JD Sports recorded record profits thanks to an increase in online spending and pent-up demand for products in stores to become the biggest non-food retailer in the UK. However, not all of JD Sports' success has come without issues. The company initially purchased rival shoe retailer Foot Asylum in 2019 for £86 million to acquire a 5% market share in footwear sales in the UK. While the acquisition was small in the eyes of JD Sport, adding only 65 shops to the growing number, it brought the attention of the UK's Competition and Markets Authority, who work to promote competition between brands for the benefit of consumers. They forced JD Sports to sell Foot Asylum after they reiterated the £86 million acquisition would harm consumers with the potential for higher prices and less choice for potential customers. JD appealed the decision but were later ordered to sell Foot Asylum as it would leave customers worse off after considering online competition in the sector. Footage also emerged of Cowgill meeting with Foot Asylum CEO Barry Brown in a car park in Greater Manchester this summer. Cowgill denies any wrongdoing over the meeting, suggesting it only occurred to discuss Brown's position within the business and happened in the car park as the cafe they were planning to meet in was closed. Either way, it was not a good look and was plastered all over the media. Like their rival Sports Direct, JD Sports has also come under fire for working conditions in their main warehouse in Rochdale, paying employees a minimum wage that has been referred to as a prison. Warehouse employees are forced to scan their fingerprints before starting work and are subject to strict security-style searches to ensure they aren't stealing products. Every worker has a target, and performance is on display for everyone to see on notice boards. The company forced employees to put their belongings in a clear plastic bag and are banned from wearing branded clothing as they may have stolen it. Some employees are also sent home when they arrive at work if there isn't enough orders for them to fulfill. As of 2021, the JD Sports Group currently have 3,300 stores in 29 countries, including 890 JD Sports shops, and deploy around 54,000 people around the world. Cowgill's next task is to focus on international expansion, with the group now owning more shops outside of the UK. The inner and outer leadership teams will play a vital role in supporting the expansion, conversing with the heads of countries to grow the business and solve the problems. Cowgill has built Sports Direct into what it is today, but he still feels anxious with the problems that need to be solved, and they have only grown in proportion as the company grows. Either way, success has been achieved, and it won't be given up without a large fight.